Hi, this is Jason DeCanio for Jay's Retro Toys and Games. Once again, happy Halloween to all of you on Monday, October 31st, 2022. We're in Season 2, and Episode 32 is tonight. And tonight we're talking about a toy that has rocked, and I mean rocked, the toy world for not only boys, but for girls as well, too. We're going to be talking about this specific toy that goes all the way back to 1953. It's a top popular toy brand by the Lesney Products, and now is owned by Mattel, which purchased the brand in 1997. The brand was given its name because the original die-cast toys were sold in boxes similar to those in which matches were sold. And the brand grew to encompass a broad range of toys, including large-scale die-cast models, plastic model kits, slot car racing, and action figures. And then during the 80s, well, they began to switch to the more conventional plastic and cardboard blister packs that were used by other die-cast toy brands, such as Hot Wheels. The box-style packaging was reintroduced for the collector's market in recent years, particularly with the release of the 35th anniversary of Superfast, the series that was in 2004, and the 50th anniversary of Superfast in 2019. Products currently marketed under this name include scale model plastic and die-cast vehicles and toy garages. What are we talking about? We're talking about Matchbox cars today on Jay's Retro Toys and Games. Toys and Games. You had a great weekend. It's Halloween night here on Jay's Retro Toys and Games. It's Monday, October 31st, and we are glad that you are with us here for another great edition of our show that talks about retro toys and games. So let's look at the history of the Matchbox cars. We'll talk about starting with the early years, the Lesney, the origin of the Matchbox name, and the I-75 series. So the Matchbox name was originated in 1953 as a brand name of the British die-casting company Lesney Products, whose reputation was modeled by John W. Jack Odell, Leslie Charles Smith, and Rodney Smith. The name Lesney was a portmanteau of Leslie and Rodney Smith's first names, and their first major sales success was the popular model of Queen Elizabeth II's coronation coach, which sold more than 1 million models. Lesney co-owner Jack Odell then created a toy that paved the way for the company's future success, which was designed for his daughter. Her school only allowed children to bring toys that could fit inside a matchbox. So Odell crafted a scaled-down version of the Lesney green and red road roller. This toy ultimately became the first of the I-75 miniature range, and then a dump truck and a cement mixer completed the original 3-model release that marketed the starting point for the mass-market success of the Matchbox series. The company decided to sell the models in replica matchboxes, thus yielding the name of the series. Additional models continued to be added to the line throughout the decade, including cars such as an MG Midget TD, a Valhalla Cresta, a Ford Zodiac, and many others. And as the collection grew, it also gradually became more international, including models of Volkswagens, a Citroën, and American makes. To make such miniatures, the designers took detailed photographs of the real models, even obtaining some original blueprints. And this enabled them to make models with surprisingly high levels of detail despite the small scale. The size of the models allowed Matchbox to occupy a market niche barely touched by the competition. The associated price advantage made the toys affordable and helped establish Matchbox as a generic word for small toy cars, whatever the brand. Now, in the earliest years of the regular or I-75 series, well before the series actually numbered 75 models, Lesney was marketed, distributed by Moco, itself named after its founder, Moses Konstam. Boxes in that era mentioned this, with the text, a Moco Lesney, appearing on each. Lesney gained its independence from Moco in 1959 by buying out Moco's share in the joint enterprise, leading to a period of growth both in sales and in size. Now, early models did not feature windows or interiors. They were made entirely of metal and were often about 2 inches or 5 centimeters in length. By 1968, Matchbox was the biggest selling brand of small die-cast model cars worldwide. And by this time, the average model in their collection featured plastic windows, interiors, tires, often with separate disc wheels, and occasional accessories, spring suspensions, opening parts, and was about 3 inches or 7 centimeters long. Some even featured steering, including the pressure-based auto steer system debuting in 1969. The line was very diverse, including lorries, buses, tractors, motorcycles, and trailers, as well as standard passenger cars. The 3 dominant brands in the world at the time, all British-made, Dinky, Matchbox, and Corgi, were very successful. Each had its own market niche and its own strong reputation, while innovations and advances by one were adopted by the others within a matter of a few years. So each also expanded to some extent into the other's territory, though this never seemed to seriously affect the sales of any brand's core series. As part of Lesney's expansion activities, 4 further die-cast model ranges were introduced during the 50s and 60s. The models of yesteryear, introduced in 1956, were renditions of classic vehicles from the steam and early automotive eras. These were often about 3.5 to 4 inches in length. Accessories packs were also introduced in 1956 and included petrol pumps, garages, and the like. Major packs, which were larger scale models, often of construction vehicles, were added in 1957. The king-size series of larger scale trucks and tractors was added in 1960 and was diversified from 1967 onwards to include passenger car models in a scale similar to that used by Corgi and Dinky. Major packs had been absorbed into the king-size range by 1968. The main focus at Matchbox continued to be their smaller cars. Other brands, including Husky Corgi Jr., Budgie, and Cigar Box, attempted to compete with the Matchbox, but none were particularly successful until American toy giant Mattel introduced the revolutionary low-friction racing wheels on its Hot Wheels line of cars. These models, although less true to scale and often featuring fantasy vehicles, were attractive, painted in bright metallic colors and fitted with racing-style mag wheels and slick tires, and were marketed aggressively and with numerous accessory products such as racetrack sets and the like. The Hot Wheels line often featured models that were decidedly American, and in 1969, a second competitor based in the U.S., Johnny Lightning, entered the market, and the bottom effectively fell out of Lesney's U.S.'s sales. At the same time, the other major market, the U.K., was also under attack by competitors. Lesney's response to this was relatively quick, but not quick enough to avoid major financial worries, by creating the Superfast line. This was effectively a transformation of the 1969 line to include low-friction wheels, at first narrow since the company needed time to retool the series to accommodate wide tires, often accompanied with new colors. The result was, at first, a strange but interesting line of fast-wheeling cars, trucks, and trailers, basically complete in 1970. Racing track sets and the like were also released to allow children to race their cars. Starting in 1970, and particularly in 1971, new models appeared with wider tires, and older models, including trucks still in the line, were retooled to fit slicks. The king-size range was similarly used, or it was updated, including a division into Super Kings, mostly trucks but also with mag wheels, and Speed Kings, those were the cars. A short-lived series of rechargeable electric cars called Scorpions was also released as well to compete with similar products from Hot Wheels. Those were the Sizzlers and Corgi, or the Electro Rockets. By the mid-1970s, Matchbox was again a force on the world market, having completed the transition and having even updated its line to include some fantasy vehicles. The I-75 series was also amended to include the Roll-O-Matics, featuring mechanical parts that moved when the vehicle was moved, and Streakers, the latter an attempt to compete with Hot Wheels' newest innovation, tampo printing on the vehicle itself. Now, in an attempt to reap more benefits from the regained popularity of the Matchbox brand, a last period of great expansion started with the introduction of multiple new lines, including the Skybusters range of aircraft, including current and historical private, commercial, and military planes, Battle Kings military models, Sea Kings naval models, Adventure 2000 science fiction models, and the 2-Packs series, which revisited the traditional Matchbox idea of a model and an associated trailer. Unfortunately, early marketing concepts of metallic painted tanks and bright colored ships were not consistent with market demands, and the models, many of which were quite well made for the money, were generally not successful. Second editions of the Battle Kings and Skybusters series were painted in more realistic colors and were well received, but by this time, general economic factors were seriously affecting the ability of the company to make a profit on toys manufactured in England. Of these series, only the Skybusters and to some extent the 2-Packs survived over time. The Convoy series of articulated truck trailers, mostly American, was an offshoot of the 2-Packs line and continues under various guises to this day. A rather simple development in this period, as much philosophical in nature as product related, initiated a revolutionary change in the marketplace. The Matchbox brand had become the most widely collected of all die-cast toy lines. In the 70s, Lesney began to seek contact with collectors, sending representatives to collectors' meets, providing information to the various collectors' clubs, and informally surveying collectors' interests. This resulted at first in the creation of several models for collectors, such as a yesteryear model, the black Y1 Ford Model T. The success of this decision led the company to place models of commercial vehicles in the yesteryear line, 2 vans at first, a Talbot and another Model T, which were tampo printed with period advertising for brand name items such as Lipton's Tea, Coca-Cola, or Suez. These models were the first commercial vehicles in the series since the 1950s. The concept was quickly expanded to include limited editions of models made for specific countries. Arnott's Biscuits in Australia, Sunlight Seif in Germany, or at the specific request of companies such as Nestle's Milk, Tasty Bread, and Harrods Department Store. This aspect of the business, so-called promotionals, had existed since the 60s, but had established itself firmly in the company's culture in the 70s with numerous models, particularly of a I-75 model, the number 17 London bus. It immediately became evident that special low-volume models of this nature were highly desirable from both the sponsor and the collector's perspective, as well as being profitable for Matchbox. The market expanded rapidly, leading to increased licensing, as well as the development of models no longer aimed at all at the children's toy market, but rather at a higher margin premium segment. But due to the more economic climate in the United Kingdom at the time, then to the lack of success of the Matchbox brand, even though all of the core ranges continued to sell strongly, the company was in difficult financial straits by the end of the 70s. Matchbox suffered in the same way as its British competitors. Following in the footsteps of Meccano, or the Dinky, and just a year before Mattel, or the Corgi, Lesney became bankrupt in June of 1982 and went into receivership. The Matchbox brand names, some tooling, molds, and other assets were then sold to Universal Toys and David Yeh. Some of the Matchbox tooling became property of Jack Odell, who continued to market Matchbox yesteryear-like products under the Lido, or Odell's last name in reverse, brand name. But essentially, Lesney and Matchbox had been sold to Yeh and his group. Yeh reorganized Lesney and renamed the group Matchbox International Ltd., with Yeh as chairman and Jack Forcelletto as president. Yeh took the group public on the New York Stock Exchange in 1986 with a successful IPO, and although the company was no longer British-owned, limited production continued in England until the mid-1980s, reusing many of the old Lesney castings, but most production and tooling was moved to Macau. It was during this period that Matchbox acquired the rights to the venerated Dinky brand, perhaps the mother of all toy car collectibles, and united two of the most important names in die-cast under one roof. New models were created, sometimes dies were also bought from competing companies, and the Dinky collection was born. Dinky models tended to be of more recent classics, particularly in the 50s, while yesteryears tended to concentrate on older vintages. It was also during the Universal era that the Matchbox collectibles concept was developed. Because of high labor costs and the lack of enough skilled workers in Hong Kong and Macau, Universal decided to outsource its die casting to mainland China. In 1984, the first Hong Kong-Shanghai joint venture toy company, called Shanghai Universal Toys Company Ltd., was established in Minhang, Shanghai. Yeh was the Hong Kong party, while the Shanghai Toys Import and Export Company, the Shanghai Shangxi Investment Company, the Bank of China, and Asian Holdings were the Chinese shareholders. The CJV contract was signed off with a 20-year period of validity. In 1985, saw the first batch of Matchbox toys which had China cast on the base. Dies were imported to Shanghai from Macau until the early 90s, when Macau finally ceased production of producing Matchbox toys. No dies were designed by SUTC, which confined itself to decal painting, assembling, and packing. Accompanying its metal casting, SUTC also had a plastic kits and components factory called Shanghai Universal Plastic Toys Company. The Motor City series, Matchbox PK series, and many plastic components were produced there between the late 80s and mid-90s. Meanwhile, Universal also outsourced its die casting capabilities in southern China. The Young Tai Toys Company produced Matchbox toys under license from Universal, but without fixed assets investments. By 1992, Universal was also seeking a buyer. In May of 92, it sold the brand to Tyco Toys, the toy division of which was bought out in turn by Mattel in 1997, uniting Matchbox with its longtime rival Hot Wheels under the same corporate banner. Under Mattel, the name Matchbox International Ltd. was terminated. The buyout by Mattel was greeted with considerable trepidation by the Matchbox collectors community. The rivalry between the Hot Wheels and Matchbox brands was not only a battle fought by the companies, collectors of each of the brands felt strongly about the qualities of their brand of choice. For the typical Matchbox collector, Hot Wheels was inferior in scaling and model choice, making them less desirable. There were fears that Mattel would either impose a Hot Wheels style philosophy on the Matchbox line or actually fold the Matchbox line into the Hot Wheels series. Early concerns of this nature by collectors were countered by assurances from Mattel that Matchbox would continue to develop its own product line independently from Hot Wheels, and that it was intended that Matchbox represent more realistic and traditional vehicles, while fantasy ones would be placed firmly in Hot Wheels territory. To demonstrate the latter commitment, some very realistic Hot Wheels Caterpillar models were actually rebranded to Matchbox, although that did not assuage concerns about the strength of the former assurance. In 2002, to celebrate its 50th anniversary, Skybusters made a comeback, but with Continental Airlines as the only major airline to sponsor the product. In 2003, Matchbox came out with a line of special edition cars. Breaking with its commitment of the 90s, Mattel revamped the Matchbox line almost completely in 2003, introducing Ultra Heroes, a series of fantasy vehicles as part of a Hero City theme. Matchbox collectors were appalled, and the market didn't respond. The toys proved to be unpopular, and the line was soon discontinued. Next year, Matchbox, with a new team in charge based in El Segundo, California, started a return to the company's roots by selling realistic, well-detailed models, most of which were based on real prototypes. Although mostly of American cars or brands well known of the American market, the reappearance of the pre-2001 Matchbox logo, albeit with its classic quotation marks, signaled the return to the original philosophy. To signal the seriousness of the venture and its commitment to the brand, Mattel introduced a new second I-75 series parallel to the standard range, celebrating the 35th anniversary of Superfast. Models were packaged in model-specific blister packs containing not only the model, but also individual traditional-style retro boxes, harking back to the Superfast boxes from about 1970. All castings were of realistic vehicles, and some 1969 castings were reactivated for inclusion in the range. The series was strictly limited in production volume, sold at a premium price, and was a great success. Further Superfast series were released in 2005 and 2006, and continued again in 2019 and 2020. The Superfast series was later discontinued for 2021 and was replaced by the similar Matchbox collector line, which are collector-focused vehicles in 1950s style retro packaging. And these vehicles have features which are not present on standard cars, such as opening parts and two-piece wheels with rubber tires, and increased detailing and decorations on the cars. We're going to pick up and stop right there and pick up on Wednesday's edition, episode 33, part 2 of the series on Matchbox cars. Well, do subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are doing fantastic. Right now, as a group, we have over an additional 281 views in the last 28 days, and our monetization is getting, it's all right. 18 public watch hours. We still got a long ways to go. But like I said, our most popular episode is Stratego, closing in on 200 listens. It's right now at 191. But do look at the other ones, folks. There's some great ones in there. The history of hopscotch, Foursquare. Let's see what else we've got. Oh, we've covered almost everything there. The Game of Life needs some views, and Monopoly too, and the Transformers episode as well too. So look it over, decide which retro toy and game episode you would like to listen to, and do comment on it. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to also to our Facebook group page, and also too I want to give a shout out to the Discontinued Toys and Games Shrine. I'm also a admin and a member of that great group, and we thank our continued people for continuing to join up. Right now, it's currently at 119 members, and we're looking for more as we continue to grow. It's a great place where you can talk about discontinued toys and games and talk about the memories associated with that great Facebook group and the people that are associated with it. I'm Jason Icanio, hoping you had a great time with this first look at Matchbox cars. We will definitely be taking a look at part 2 when we come back. And remember, always be honest, be real, and keep it simple, stupid. Kiss. We'll see you on Wednesday and in November for episode 33. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Democracy Network for great more content like this one.